Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Zero Basis Points podcast. So, George, it's been a
Nice
while
to
since
see
we
you.
recorded.
Yeah. Nice to see you again on the podcast. It's been too long for our exclusive zero basis points time. Good to be back for another episode. Episode 14. I mean, we're really chugging along.
I think it's been a long time coming. For me mentally, it was hitting 10. Now we're at 14, and we've had one with an inaugural guest, Craig, which I think went really well. We're going to have one more. The next one will be with another guest, which we'll announce at the end of the podcast. But I think this is becoming like just our chats and we record, and it's a fun um activity at this point. It went from a hobby and a vision that you had, because I want to mention that we even had the simultaneous sip, which was awesome.
Right.
And
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
So earlier this week, we had wealth management's simultaneous sip, the first simultaneous sip. And it's just something, it's an impromptu occurrence that's going to be weekly, I'd say at a minimum. But what we want to do is just get together outside of zero basis points, but almost in the zero basis points kind of way, where we can talk about the space, just have a little bit of fun, maybe not necessarily get into the weeds that we get into on zero basis points. But it was inspired, and I wish I got into this, but I was dealing with technical issues on that last one, but it was inspired by Scott Adams. And Scott Adams created a comic called Dilbert, this office guy, if you want to look into it. But he's also wrote a book, like my favorite book that I'm reading right now, Reframe Your Brain. But he has this time with his audience where you just spend at 10 o'clock. And, Scott Adams is a dying man at this point. He has
I saw that.
cancer.
Yeah.
So just to hear his insights into everything that's happening in the world, and also his style, his comedic style, but the way he engages with everybody, and kind of just like a refreshing 30 minutes mid-morning where we can recharge and remember that we're all humans working together on the same planet, and to have, for me, a double espresso. And
Love it.
for everybody else, you can bring a hot water with a lemon or a tea, or whatever you want. But it's a time for us to have that simultaneous sip, and 15 minutes together to chill.
Yeah, so I saw there was a tweet where he was asking Trump for a shot or something like that, and then I put two and two together because I know you had mentioned his name before, and it clicked, and I was like, "Was this the guy?" And then yeah, you told me a little bit about it, but I think it's exciting. I mean, for what you want to do with it and the vision you had, because our industry is so compartmentalized, and we don't get enough of those types of um forums. So I think at least when, something like this comes along, it's pretty awesome. And I'm definitely looking forward to the next one. I know we have one. We'll probably do ad hoc like next week or so, but yeah, it's fun. I would love to get some more insights from the folks who watch it live to let us know what they're thinking at that moment. I know there's a lot of news. We were just talking about it earlier before we started recording as well. So, there's really no place for us in our industry to just hop on and share. So would definitely love for that.
When we go back to how this started, like our industry, for the most part, when we want to be casual, we jump on LinkedIn. And we talk relatively about the same stuff, and like that's where we socialize during the week. And I would comment on something, and sometimes I'd feel like that was taken out of context. You and I would both do the same thing. uh, you know More so me with the out of context, and you're pretty pragmatic in your comments. But I was also doing videos, and it was just the podcast is just such a better format for getting across what we're trying to say. Because if you're scrolling, it's you can it's a great reach, LinkedIn, but the podcast format is just so much more easy to consume and get to know what we're really thinking. Because I think, Hike, what you and I talk about is the tip of the spear. And I don't say that like metaphorically. Like I say
Yeah.
metaphorically, but I've been in this industry for 20 years, and when I talk with you, we cover the topics that Carp is covering for Palantir. It's the
Yeah.
exact same thing. And I just want to say last week's AI AdviseAI conference, which we'll talk about, there was nobody talking about, it's your ultimate vision of what Arca can be. It's so much of what is exciting people in the AI space are just components of the platform. So it's an exciting time, and we can talk more about all of that. I know we got to cover fitness before we go too far,
Well, I
but
was gonna put you on the spot because I was out for a bit, and I've already told you I don't work out usually when I'm traveling. Aside from the East Coast, and for clients because I'm still on, and Equinox is my jam. But otherwise, when I go out of the country, I usually just take the time off. But you haven't been traveling, so what's the excuse?
no, I was raised by a World War One, the son of a bomber. But in my family, you say no excuse, sir. There's no excuses. But for the last couple weeks, and transparency is everything. You noticed I was grumpy, and you asked me if I'd been working out, and like that's why I love working with you, because who does that? And for you to have picked that out, and I'm like, shit, I haven't been working out.
Yeah.
Like, and you're like you, Pete, more so. And then you like, I don't want to let you guys down when it comes to work, because Pete actually, gives me these customized workouts that
He's your
people are otherwise
personal
paying.
trainer.
Yeah,
That's why.
he's doing exactly. He's my personal trainer and makes these customized workouts. And sometimes I give him a hard time about them. So he's incredible. But yeah, the last thing I want to do is let you guys down, but even more so myself. And I was telling you this morning, like we were talking about it. I worked out the last 2 days. And then this morning, I was telling you, like, I saw Joe Rogan talking last night about the importance of just continuing to build muscle. And when I work out, like, I'm not doing it so that I'll have a six pack this summer on the beach, as nice
Yeah.
as that would be. It's because I have a 5-year-old kid, a son, a 10-year-old. I've got the 16-year-old's up and running, but he still wants to play basketball and football. And I have to be able to, I need to live for a long time. And I don't want to have a broken hip or, uh, you know, augmented limbs. I want to stay as OG, body as possible. So getting into shape is critical. But and Tyrone Ross, I think you might follow him on LinkedIn as well. But
I
he
see
talked
his
about,
stuff. Yeah.
he had a post, and it comes like right in the middle of all of this as well. Is like early stage startups, you cannot compromise your health and fitness like regime. Like you've got that. That's got to be like the primary thing that you're focused on. So if you focus on being healthy, well, not even that. It's when you're working out, good ideas come to you because you're pumped up, you're listening to music, the endorphins hit, and you just got the idea.
And then good things happen. The stuff that you're really hoping to come
Yeah.
through. Sometimes you just got to step away for it to happen.
You sit at your desk trying to make it happen. Yeah. And it's when you walk away, when you surrender to the flow and you just float in the river and just relax for a minute and just stop trying to manipulate the outcomes. You're right. That tends to be when things get unblocked. So I got to say, like, that's such a cool part about like working with you and Pete. I've always emphasized being healthy and exercise, and maybe more importantly, being strong.
Yeah.
So, that was, I always thought that was cool. So back onto it for the
Wow.
last 2 days. And now I need to continue. I missed it.
I had to drop in that wow,
uh,
Wow.
God, I missed it.
all good.
But anyway, so I just, again, I'll continue to do that. It almost made me feel like I had to go back to phase one of my workout of like round one, but I really do just enjoy weights and then light cardio after the weights. It's not that hard. It takes an hour, and everything's better after you do it. So
Yeah, I saw James on the chat. So
I
we
just saw
might
that too. I thought you were trying to tell me something.
no, I actually think since the simultaneous sip, you guys probably had it on live. So we might be just live streaming right now, the whole podcast recording, not to make you nervous. But
Hey,
why
no,
as well just do it.
not nervous at all.
This is what I live for.
I've used foul language, but yeah, that's all right. I think it was just the S word, so
I don't
it's
think that matters anyway.
LinkedIn
It's not like they
appropriate.
bleep us when they do the editing.
But I think it's good to know. One of the part of that exercise of our first simultaneous sip is we broadcast, we stream from here. I don't know if it's called broadcasting from here to multiple platforms. So we're not able to engage with every comment.
I know, but
So
the ones that come through here, at least, I think it's YouTube ones get forwarded, maybe Twitter and not LinkedIn. But either way, we'll get to the LinkedIn one. So if we show up and then we start probably after this in the next 30 minutes hitting those up, you'll probably see our activity anyway. But speaking of, I wanted to transition over to, yeah, and then I think Vahe and Seg also told us we're live too. So why not? Let's just have
you're
fun
lucky I
with it.
put on do not disturb. Now I don't know any,
It's all right.
I don't want to be disturbed when I'm in the podcast studio. So yeah, I
Let's
haven't been to
transition over to the Advise AI. I think that was a big one. Obviously, I wanted to have the episode where we have the retrospective about it. But what are some of your thoughts? I took some notes, by the way, while we were having the opening remarks. I would love to cover those. But what are some of your high level thoughts?
I thought I really liked Kitsy's opening thoughts, and he's so pragmatic in his delivery, and it's so easy to consume his messages. I know that's why our community and our industry respects him so well. He's just very sensible and good with like his messaging and brings a lot of value to all of his sessions. My biggest takeaway from the conference, before I get into my biggest takeaway, I thought it was a great conference. I thought as an attendee, I try to always think of it from an attendee's perspective, because there's a lot of main events, but let's say from a technology vendor perspective, there are sessions where you give 8-minute demos to a room of all of the attendees. I think that's difficult to consume for all of the attendees. And even if you're there to find a pointed result, you're sitting through a lot of the sessions, and it's difficult to consume more than two of those in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Conferences are so difficult. I'd be doing them myself if they were easy. They're very difficult to pull off. So I thought it was a great conference, but otherwise, my biggest takeaway was the fact that if I could get up, and say, all of these things that were being presented on the stage, I'm sitting in the audience, and I kind of knew it was coming, but these are components of Arca.
Yeah.
These are not our primary application. The ability to have documents and Arca extract data from that document and put them somewhere and send them downstream to do something highly sensitive. That's a component of Arca. That's a component we don't talk about a lot. AI chat, being able to chat with my portfolio system and across different domains like CRM. That's a component of our system. But what's most exciting of what we do are the workflows, and that's what we've announced, and that's a component of our system. So I love that, when you and I talk about Arca, it's an operating system. And I love that was validated at that conference. That was my takeaway. I love that validation where it's your vision, and to me, it's the most important vision in the wealth management space. It's such an incredible team building it. People way smarter than I thought I'd be surrounded with ever. So yeah, I'm excited about the future. I always have been since engaging with Arca, really ever since I met you. But yeah. That was my, some of the big, little observance and a small takeaway. But otherwise, it was great. It was all I could always find water and coffee, and it was at the Win. Now, got to take a minute to just talk about the Win, okay? Because maybe I've been to Vegas 50 times, but usually, like through all the years, you're trying to just survive the conference. But when I do a conference with you, you entrench me in the really the quality of the
The
experience.
finer things at the win.
Yeah, exactly. So like the Win of all the things happening in Vegas. And I have other friends in Los Angeles, Tim Andrusani, shout out, who you met. He says a lot of people in LA don't say they're going to Vegas. They say they're going to the Win. And it's that incredible of a place. Like, the restaurants inside with waterfalls and that's what Las Vegas is, the Win. So and it's right there in the middle of everything. So an incredible hotel. I had a view of the Sphere the whole time from the room. That was really cool. So I took a lot of cool videos for the kids, and they thought that was really cool. But yeah,
I told all our clients whenever we do an ARCA conference, it's going to be at the Win too. So I mean,
right,
I'm bought in.
yeah,
So
yeah. Why would we go anywhere else? Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
No, that's awesome.
But what about you? Like when for the conference? Like,
I think, yeah, I mean, everything you said, you hit the nail on the head. But a little bit of my kind of feedback from the conference. I think there's a lot of talk. Kitsis, I think, did a great job with opening remarks. I even took down a couple of the things that I wanted to cover from what he said, and he's boiled down. I think he's talked about AI so much at this point, right? And he's doing all these studies through their own organization for surveys and things like that. And he said he would even want to take it further, but one of the things that I thought he said that was super interesting was that a lot of the surveys they've been doing is, one, non AI related. A lot of folks are unhappy with CRM, or there's a steady decline about their satisfaction with CRM, is how he put it, which I completely agree with, and I think you would too, and I think James Cantwell would as well. I think that's just a theme across our entire industry. The other side of it that I think he said was AI is primarily used for the cases that are furthest away from the client. So I think it's super interesting because we've been right on the money on that as well. When you talk about leveraging AI in your practice as an advisor, you don't want the AI to be interacting with the client without your purview, without your kind of oversight. And I think that's where a lot of people get skittish, right? And I completely agree. You want to have AI be leveraged and used in places where there's repeatable tasks, there's things that open up your, days, activities or whatever capacity. So rather than just having the AI send stuff out and interact directly with the advisor, you should focus on leveraging it for that type of stuff. And I think that's where a lot of people don't know where to start. They don't know where the bottlenecks primarily are. When you're working with a very large provider, broker dealer, one of our clients, they have so much going on in the back office space that for them it makes sense to leverage what we showed at Advise AI, which is our agentic AI workflows. Things that humans usually are doing, we're leveraging AI to do those same tasks. Reading the document, taking stuff and putting it into their own books and record system, taking that and then putting it into the custodian, initiating transfers, and then coming back around and repeating that process, hundreds of thousands of times. So I think where a lot of people are going to start pointing to is leveraging it for those use cases. Some of the things that I did disagree with was that, for the percentage of users out there, I think it's really low. I think he said 75% of the folks didn't want to automate anything from their surveys. That's mind blowing because I think either that 75% has a super limited scope of what AI can do and they think it's just talking and chatting and that's why they're so scared of it, or their practice maybe isn't at that point, which there's a lot of higher volume. I think advisors who are on the smaller side who aren't maybe experiencing those bottlenecks yet. But the cases are out there. And I can tell you, with the way the world is transforming, you're going to need a solution or you're going to be left behind. And that's what I was actually working on my 2026 market outlook for wealth management. I put in there. So I would love to hear feedback once that's out from multiple people to see what they think, because I think 2025, whoever was using AI or testing it out, 2026 is when they actually leverage it and see the value. And the people who weren't, you're just going to constantly play catch up. And that's going to be an unfortunate part of your practice.
right, you're gonna be doing stuff that you could not be doing.
And your
One thing,
competitor isn't doing. So, like, they don't have to waste time doing it anymore. So, they're not going to be wasting time, like, waiting around for stuff. They're pushing AI to do it.
right? I forgot when Michael Kitces was talking about, agentic advisors don't want AI close to the client.
Yeah, I agree
Obvious,
with that.
obvious. To me,
Yeah,
that was an obvious point because then that diminishes your value, and that's just like, come on, like, don't make the client think that a robot can do the job. That's why they're not with a robo advisor and me. So I think to some degree, that's it. That's like for the same reason advisors are annoyed with Schwab retail because they're marketing to the Schwab institutional clients. It's like, yeah, talk about proximity. You got like my own custodian getting in between me and my client. So
exactly.
advisors don't want anyone in between them and their clients. It's back office stuff. And every advisor, when they're driving to the beach or doing something else, if they got an alert on their phone and they could execute with a click and execute back office processes with a prompt, they're going to do it. They just don't know and don't trust it enough yet. And even I read something, I don't even remember the LinkedIn post earlier today, where yeah, now that people are starting to trust the AI, and it's like, yeah, that's exactly what we were saying. They just don't trust it, and then once you trust it, it's like then all of a sudden you're ahead with your demands and expectations of AI. Well, why isn't it doing this? It should be. And so already we're deploying AI to clients who wanted to do things that ChatGPT can't do. So it's like, the expectations in our space are aggressive, and that's what I love it, because I think we're also very dialed into those expectations. So
Yeah, and I think agentic was dropped around. Well, it's a buzz term, and I know they were going to, but it was dropped around so often at that conference that I was so um I don't want to say I was disheartened, because we're very careful when we say agentic, right? And the I think a lot of people were up there. Some of the demos said, "Here's an agent. We have agents in our system." It was a CRM, and one of the agents was provide a summary. That's not an agent per se. Like, within the definition of AI, that's not an agent. Um, that's it's a task or a workflow that an agent can do is provide
yeah,
you the summary, but I
event-driven
don't think
API
that's an agent.
calls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think that we got to be very careful with that, and we'll be the first. Like, the same thing with the operating system. We've been talking about an AI native operating system, and that's what Arca represents, because it does have everything built out for the agents to work with that data. But you can't call everything an operating system. One thing I will say, though, that I was surprised, not really surprised about, but kind of opened my eyes, is the number of CRMs that were out there, the newer CRMs that were out at AdviseAI. And I would say the AI portion of the CRM that they had was just that they had a note taker with it, or they were consuming note takers' notes, and that was
and
it.
yeah, and another thing to the CRM point, because I was a CRM guy.
Yeah,
Everybody's complaining about CRMs the whole time. It's
yeah,
like it's the go-to thing to complain about because it's the thing you use the most. It's how I know that's how I know it's not going to be as easy to displace as everybody thinks. And if people hear me say that, they'll say, "Yeah, right." Then go for it. I think it's awesome. But advisors have been complaining about CRM forever. There was Redtail when Brian McLaughlin was at the helm, and we're peak 2012 through 2016 Redtail. There are raving fan groups, but otherwise everybody's complaining out there about Salesforce, Juncture, Bill Good, Gorilla, Goldmine, all these things that go back to the 80s. It's like, so I just feel like CRM is easy to pick on because it's the thing you use every day.
yeah.
So
Well,
I
some of
think
the
I told you.
points, some of the
Sorry, go
points
ahead.
that Kitsis made on the opening remarks around CRM, and I thought that stayed true throughout the conference, was, he was like, "Oh, it's just basically like a Rolodex and back end line items," and I'm like, "Sure, it's mostly sales focused. Of course it is, because the CRM and the functionality of an advisor don't really fit if you think about it fundamentally. The CRM is so much of a sales tool and isn't made for the longevity of a relationship of a financial advisor with his or her clients, because there's so much that of the dynamic that the relationship changes, that if your best bet are notes and that's what's going to move the needle on that relationship, you're behind. I mean, it's always going to be behind, because there's so much forward looking things that you have to prep for as an advisor, managing your clients' assets and the wealth and the entities and everything, that if you constantly have to meet up for notes, and notes are the way that drives the decisions that you make for them, I feel like that's a very limited vision of the AI capabilities for any CRM.
Right. For me, notes was a way to protect yourself. First, you took notes to make it seem like you have a good memory, so that between client meetings, I'm like old enough that it's like I just need a report of all of the notes I wrote between my last meeting with the client and today's date, because I'm meeting with them tomorrow. And you can have categories so I can look at all the specific notes. And that that was a great use case for notes. But um there when we built Grendel, and I talk about it a lot, the best CRM that's ever been built, it wasn't a sales tool. So when you got guys, and that's why I didn't like call it into CRM. So when not guys, when you had firms that would say, show me, when it got into, let's say, 2014, show me campaigns. That's what they would call them. campaigns where you can create a group of clients and then campaign, and if they click it, then this thing happens. I said, that's not great. We're aggregating accounts, we're doing the performance, we're doing all this other stuff. But that sounds like I don't even think Redtail was doing that good. It was more like I guess it was just Salesforce I would send you to if you were all big about those campaigns. But they don't even work good in Salesforce. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Well, you remember
But
what I said at the conference, and I was just thinking to myself as you were talking if I even put it on here because it might, rustle a couple of feathers. But my hot take at the conference, which I was laughing about, was that the AI note taker is a glorified tool for you, for the advisor to make it look like they actually care about their client, you know?
yeah.
So, and, and,
How you
and with that,
kids? How
it's a
you
gut
kids?
punch,
Yeah, yeah.
but you know so I had to set that one up, but it is, I mean, if I were to peel back everything that the AI space is and the note takers, and I know even in the simultaneous sip I kind of said a little, and Joe Moss, you know screenshot of some of those hot takes, but I think here's a hot take that I think will be interesting, is that the note, obviously I'm considering a lot. I don't want to be like Jason Wink, not considering the volume of certain players in the space by opening accounts saying, oh, it's supposed to take 2 minutes. Sure, like I can talk to each person and remember information. When you're talking to hundreds of clients, you obviously don't remember everything, but it's helping you seem like you care about them more than you probably do. And
Right.
sure, I mean, if that's what it is, that's a very important practice, I get it. But at the same time, I think that's, you just have to call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
So
To
take
some
it as you
degree, as
will.
a client, to some degree, as a client, and maybe this is the type of client I am. It's I want you to know about me. You don't need to ask me about my kids. Where my brother's my advisor. My brother's my advisor. But if it were some other advisor, you talk to me about my kids.
Well, you're
I
lucky
get it.
because he cares probably. So.
Yeah, yeah. He actually does care. He won't let me do things. So he's really doing everything he can to secure my retirement. We'll
Well, your
reclaim our
brother's the advisor, so he cares.
right. Yeah, yeah. So he cares, but I don't necessarily cares. Like if we talked about something and he wrote a note about it and forgot to do it, that's one thing. So I think notes will help you do that, do the next thing. But I don't necessarily need you to care so much about me as I do the portfolio. Just focus on the money.
100%.
That's the performance report, rate of return. Yeah, it's my needs are my simple.
Yeah.
Balance, rate of return. Not going that into the weeds. So yeah, so I agree with that, and even I used to say back in the day, given my CRM demos, yeah, we take our notes. The reason you want to be a good note taker is from a compliance perspective. Why are you making the recommendations you're making to these clients? And you've got to be able to answer that question. And it can be difficult to remember when you're going through an audit and you're stressed out, not only about that, but other things happening in your life. Like, I wish I put that down. Why did I recommend that long-term care policy? Oh, that's right. We talked about that. And so there are things that notes can be helpful for too, because we don't we're humans. So we only have so much capacity to remember things. So once you scale to, let's say, 80 households and 250 million, just thinking of like a standard advisor, it's difficult to remember everything. So things are gonna start slipping through the cracks and be like, oh my
Well,
gosh,
that's
I
the
haven't.
caveat, obviously when you have so much, and I totally agree, like you need something like that, but I'm still
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, that's that's the point about the AI note takers I wanted to make.
What our clients know, any clients I've ever worked with, I memorize all your stuff.
Yeah.
I truly remember, man.
You
Your
modeled
whole
the AI note
expert.
taker after
I'm not
George.
taking any notes. I just consume the problem, thinking about the gaps between what we can get over to quickly and or not. Without the gaps. But we do really care about But for real, I think I do have a high capacity to consume information. But if you're an advisor with like 100 clients, kids, and all this type of stuff, and you want to be sending them birthday cards to their kids, or whatever
Yeah.
you're trying to do, but
Well, I think the other thing that was pretty cool at the conference was the breakout sessions. The one that we attended was around PDFs, which I think was awesome. I think it's actually surprising that there were more people around that one, or PDFs weren't talked about more across the entire conference because, as we know, our business still operates on PDFs. They still haven't overcome that issue. So, the one we were on was with Erica Molina from Cambridge. We had Grant from FMB, and I think, and then just the guy who was moderating it. But
In McKenna.
yeah, that's right. You talked to him in McKenna. That's right. And yeah, I think that was an awesome session. It was primarily around planning as well, but I think the PDF issue goes way beyond planning alone. I mean, it's new account creation, it's updating information, investment policy statements, etc. So, um, you know, I think there's a whole slew of things that AI starts overcoming, and PDFs should be one of them. You still need a repository for sure for some of the larger operations that need the PDF, but we've talked about this in previous podcasts. Once the PDF comes into your system and you have the data, you no longer need it. So why keep it around? Obviously, there's data retention and what, but I'm saying, you shouldn't be working off of PDFs as the source of truth alone.
If
So
there's one thing about one part of storing the file, or actually the metadata of the file, I don't think it has to be the file itself. I'm talking about SEC Rule 17A4F on file retention and the media on which the file is retained. Um, so I believe it is just the metadata in a non-alterable, worm format, all that kind of stuff. But typically, yeah, you're not going back to retrieve the document that often as much as you would rather just have a quick view of the data that's on that document, the way core script presents data from a document inside of Arca.
that's
So,
it.
exactly.
I would have loved more sessions on that and just more takes on that, because I know and others would love to hear it because no one has really solved that issue. Obviously, for us, we get the PDFs, we'll do all the stuff in Arca for it, and hopefully all the data is transmitted correctly across all your tech stack. But you're still going to get new PDFs. You're still going to have to generate certain PDFs based on the custodians you're using. So, it's a very interesting problem to have. I think there's going to be, there's definitely going to need to be some solutions out there. And I read an article a while ago, and I was going to forward the link to some people, but it's been a while now. And it's like, the reason we have PDFs is because it was the best transmission of data at the time with the computers we had. There was no other way to transmit that information that universally worked across the board, but everyone can open a PDF and you can read it. Even as a human, you can see it. And that was it. So, like, I think at this point, technology's evolved enough that we can question why, or do we really need those PDFs anymore?
Yeah. And I think it's important because you've talked about kind of the death of PDF in a previous episode, but I think it's important for our listeners to know your history behind your thinking there. And because it impresses me that when we think about what you consider of what we might take off of a PDF and what might we do with that. Some people are up there talking on stage just about doing that. Companies that extract data off of trust and wills documents and sends it somewhere else. And that was the one of the first pieces you worked on was to extract, core script, which is a component of Arca that extracts data from the document. It extracts the data from the document, which is good, but it extracts the data from the document and it sends it downstream into a performance reporting tool like Adapar and to the transaction table so that it can calculate ROI. One of the most sensitive processes in our industry. I mean, you have performance reporting companies with a service bureau that reconciles, looks for outliers, and all that kind of stuff. So, what I mean is, we have data feeds. Well, if we think of a tool like Orion, I'll just pick Orion, and traditionally we think, oh, I want to run performance, so I'm going to consume data from Fidelity, Pershing, and Schwab, and I'm going to calculate performance on that. Boom. But in the family office universe, which is more unique to Adapar, you understand that it's not the Fidelity feed, the Schwab feed, it's the world of weirdness.
Yep.
The private equity feeds, capital calls, all these things that we don't hear about in a traditional non-family office RIA. So you came up with a way to extract data from not only PDFs, I say things that look like the Constitution, a napkin, like the
Yeah,
worst
the
looking piece
trust
of
that
paper.
you've seen. Yeah.
Like my pop up he like the stuff he had in his briefcase on a plane in World War II, like
Yeah.
those documents. You're extracting data off that, finding beneficiaries, and doing incredible things with it. So when a PDF loses value, in your mind, I think it's largely in part because you say, like, once it's out of there, like, never had to go back to the PDF.
Yeah, I think the story of Core Script, I don't know if we've covered the full thing once or twice before on the podcast, but I think, look, when I was doing black market consulting and I was helping a lot of clients run their ad environments and doing the conversions, etc., a lot of folks ended up saying, look, I need all these PDFs. I'm going to get them quarterly, monthly, etc. I need to update these numbers in Adapar. And you had folks who were manually doing this, whether it's coming through email, they had to log into portals. And then you had companies that popped up like Arch, like Canoe, that were doing a lot of this at that time for Adapar. But it was always just, hey, I'm going to parse out all this information and you're going to do this. When we went in and said, why don't we just leverage AI instead of these templates to do it? And we started building on top of that. Core Script, funnily enough, became the eye of our AI, right? It's like, here's the seeing eye to all that data that's going to be coming into these unstructured data sets, which are going to be most likely PDFs. And when you extrapolate that model further, everything that a human does in our environment, in our industry, and some others, ancillary ones that are related, a human needs to open a PDF to read something to make a decision. And for you to have the AI do the same, you're going to have to solve for that issue. You're going to have to solve for how the AI is going to read the document, not always going to expect to see it in a certain format. It might not know what it's looking for. It has to look for a wider set of data than is actually on the document as well. How do you manage for that? What are required, what are not, etc. So there's going to be all these other problems you have to solve for. But if you can't figure out how to solve for the seeing portion of your AI into this data, then it's going to be a subpar solution, because each time you're going to be reliant on some data set being normalized, being clean, presented to you in immaculate fashion for you to then work off of it. And I can tell you, between ourselves and our listeners, there's probably a 99% chance you're not going to get that data out of any existing wealth manager or any firm, because it's not that clean. And they know themselves. It's just, you're going to have to build an entire solution just to keep that data clean. And everyone's talking about the data lake, and it's like, well, guess what? I saw another take on the link on LinkedIn. If you automate with your problems, then if you take your problems and don't solve for them and you just automate for it, you've probably like automated your problems as well, which are going to be, hey, I just pulled a bunch of, you know, PDF docs that the securities were named different, and I didn't verify them and normalize them, and don't have a, security master to square it up to one. So now I have a bunch of duplicates in there. So all those things are going to be landmines that are going to pop up at some point. So that's why, for me, the journey with CoreScript was such a great lesson in how we're going to have to then have the AI look at this data before it does anything further. And then now we have a crusade against PDFs. Hopefully we'll overcome.
Right. Did that, like, I've never even asked you, because you like we just talked about the way Core Script works, and not really doing an ARCA product demo here, but we also have, and Core Script work to consume, extract data from documents, send it down, present it, just look at it, send it downstream to do things. That's also a part of agentic workflows upstream. I wanted to just talk about, it's also, I don't know if it's the same tech, but in our chat tool. So when you're logged into ARCA, you authenticate with your performance reporting system. You can start chatting with it, which is incredible. What you could also do is create your own subdomains. So imagine, as an example, we have the ARCA employee handbook, and I
Hmm.
take the ARCA employee handbook, I upload it to that subdomain. Just imagine a file tree, and now I can say, how many vacation days? 0. No, I'm kidding. But you could then, so is that Core Script too, or like that?
Yeah, that's why it became one of the first modules we built, and then the applications for it became so widely spread out across the entire environment of stuff we were seeing and all the solutions. It's like, for the subdomains of in the chat, someone came in and said, I have a bunch of standard procedure docs that I want to upload or have, the AI know about. Well, how are you going to read those standard procedure docs? Unless you're using some newer high tech solution that's already parsing stuff out and making it digitally available to you, like Scribe or something like that. But a lot of the documents that are sitting in some advisor's workspace are not. They're just sitting in a share file. They're sitting in some shared folder, etc. So we had to find a way to read them. That's why core scripts, functionality went from, hey, I'm just going to look at alternative statements and process the data and put them into Adapar and other systems, into it really becoming the seeing eye of the engine of the rest of our AI. Hey, I'm going to read a bunch of these standard procedure docs and present that information to you. Or I'm going to go through and read account creation documents and PDFs and verify it's signed. So there's all these things, and these look different, right? There's no one size fits all for two custodians docs that you're opening accounts for. Same thing for beneficiary docs, same thing for trusts. So that's where CoreScript really got like a little rubber band. We pulled the flexibility of its solution across the board, and it's really driving a lot of those seeing issues. And we had a conversation with another startup. Actually, they're actually a pretty set public company, but they're within, I guess that was their labs division talking to us, and they were like, "How do we solve for something like this?" Like, they're surprised that there's a solution out there that does it, because I'm sure they get so many formats of documents that they don't even expect to be able to build templates around, because that's the way that it's been done prior, like Laser app.
Yeah, right. When you talk about it, like a lot of times we think about AI as horizontally elastic. And like when you, because you're overlaying it across a group of disparate systems. But when I think of like vertical elasticity, is what allows us to take something like CoreScript, vertical elasticity, way upstream for institutions who need agentic solutions. CoreScript is operating way up at the top of that elastic strip, and downstream there are other things where it can do to extract data to get it to Adapart, or use it as a component of chat, so that I can ask it about whatever I want. I could upload documents and ask questions about that specific document. So when I think about that vertical elasticity, it's like when we start talking to our clients and prospects, we want to say it's an operating system on the first call, but you don't want to nauseate people on the first call. But I say it, and then when I say it on the third call, it's like, well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it is an operating system, because I'm in this system with a lot of, just like the way I log into Microsoft. Not Microsoft. I log into my Mac and I have my iOS, and I do things there with files. I move them around, and that's the experience inside of Arca. However, you move them, you get them into place, and there's just automations and more of a natural language interaction, which to me is the future of everything that we're doing in wealth management. Just make it easy, make it natural language, make it elastic, vertically and horizontally and sideways. So, yeah. Hey, thank you, all three of you.
You get you get the single member audience. That's awesome.
Even during a live stream. Are we still live stream, by the way?
Yeah,
Forgot.
we are. I
I
think it's
looked up
still
there and I just
going.
saw live again. I forgot about that. And gotta make sure we don't have questions.
Well, it's all right. I've been looking at the chat. I know I haven't been looking at the LinkedIn ones, which we won't see here anyway. But if there is any, it's Friday. I don't know if anyone's actually, on there watching. Maybe it is a pretty slow day, so they are. But either way, I think let's present the next episode we're gonna throw up there. So we're gonna have, for episode 15, Brad Frey over from Conquest Planning, which Brad, I know you've known him in the industry for a while, myself as well, and I see him at the conferences so often, and even before, when Arco was just starting, I'd see him like consistently, and I thought he'd be a great guest to have, whether first or second on the list. But we've been actually trying to get him on for a bit, so I'm excited, because I think Conquest Planning is one of those companies that is revolutionizing some of the wealth planning space. There's so many players in there, the older players out there as well, the incumbents. So I'm excited for what they're doing. Obviously, they're close to us, whether just folks we've seen at conferences and gotten close to, or just impressed with the tech there. But I'm looking forward to that one. You're gonna have to ride I'll have to ride shotgun to a lot of it for the e-money and stuff, since your experience there is far greater.
Yeah, like, that's why I'm excited to hear about, like, Brad is such an amazing, like, like, and Craig too was such a good, but amazing human being. But he was also on those early E-money years when E-money was just getting up and running. And RRIA was one of E-money's first users. We went to Ed Walters' house for the demo. But Brad will tell you about Ed Walters getting him fired up to run through a brick wall to sell E-money. And E-money and Money Guide Pro was the Coke and Pepsi war, you know? And then I said, right capital, it's a RC. I
Yeah.
mean, ironically, but it was just such an aggressive battle that I'd love to hear because I loved Kevin Hughes over at Money Guide Pro, Tony Leo. Like, these are the guys that they made money. Bob Curtis, Tony Leo, Kevin Hughes made Money Guide Pro what it is. And then Brad was on the early of E-money. And then these are like the biggest fintech deals that happened. Hope both, I think, $500 million deals that they exited for. So yeah, I'll be excited to hear about his insights and more what he has to say about Conquest and where he sees all it going. He's just a cool dude. I'm excited about it. So
Yeah, same
tune in
here.
for that one, everybody. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll go
I think
live.
that's gonna be a fun one for us to have.
Right.
But with that, we'll sign off for all our millions of viewers that were on the live stream, and
Yeah,
for
our
those who
first,
will
yeah,
catch it
much
after.
better than the first live stream is from a quality perspective. So this was great. Yeah, it just goes to show how much we don't chop up 0 basis points. This is how we do, you know.
Yeah, no,
Um,
this is awesome. I think it was awesome. To be completely frank, just hit the live not knowing. So, but I think this was a fun one to do. And if folks enjoy it, I was going to tell you, George, you should probably post it on LinkedIn to see if people do want more of the live stuff. Because whether it's the simultaneous sip early in the morning, the 15 to 30 minutes, or we do a podcast episode where we do Q&A with the audience, there's I think functionality to get audience members on, and we can hear them as well. So if this is exciting, we'll just keep doing it. Maybe one every 5 or 10, we throw a live one like this and, lead up to it and
Yeah, whenever
make
there's
it.
requests, I think a lot of these big institutions need to assemble the stakeholders and executive teams and just watch the live stream
Wouldn't that
and
be
then make
awesome?
their decisions because we make it very clear. Talk about decision support.
Exactly. How about anonymously getting them to ask the questions that will make the decision on the pod live? And then you can just say, hey, 0 basis points, we'll take the rep for it. If anything happens, just come
Yeah,
back to
you
us.
have your consultants in the room that you're overpaying, and then have us. You can ask us both questions at the same time. You're like, these guys are giving us better answers than you guys. So
Yeah,
that would be a fun
exactly.
exercise too. So yeah, put everybody on the spot. That would be a lot of fun. But
I
yeah,
love
this
it.
has been great, man. It's been great to do it again, and looking forward to the next one.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much for joining us. And thanks, George, again. Keep up the workout so we can check in for the next one. And I'm looking forward to getting Brad on here.
All right. Thank you, everybody.